Welcome back, everybody. We are solving one more question on completing the square method today, and we'll also see how it can be used to derive the quadratic formula. Let's go straight to it. Solve the quadratic equation 20x squared minus 4x minus 1 equals 0 by the completing the square method. First of all, we'll check what the coefficient of x squared is. If it is now 1, if the coefficient of x squared is greater than 1, we divide through by that value. So I'm dividing through by 20. 0 over 20 is still 0, so I don't need to write that. This simply means x squared minus 1 over 5x minus 1 over 20 equals 0. Now I'm going to move the constant, which is minus 1 over 20, to the right hand side, and that simply means x squared minus 1 over 5x equals, when minus 1 over 20 goes to the right hand side, it becomes plus 1 over 20. Now I'll check what the coefficient of x is. It is minus 1 over 5, so half that coefficient is going to be 1 over 2 times minus 1 over 5, which is minus 1 over 10. So I'm going to add the square of half the coefficient of x to both sides. That means I'm adding the square of minus 1 over 10 to both sides, and that's going to be x squared minus 1 over 5x plus minus 1 over 10 squared equals 1 over 20 plus minus 1 over 10 squared. And that is, now I need to write the left hand side as a square, and to do that I'm just going to write x. This is a trick, just write x and write whatever half the coefficient of x is, which is minus 1 over 10, and then you square the whole of that. So the square of x minus 1 over 10 is the same as the whole of this left hand side, and that's going to be equal to 1 over 20 plus minus 1 squared is 1, 10 squared is 100. So that simply means x minus 1 over 10, the square of x minus 1 over 10 is the same as 6 over 100. If we add the two fractions on the right hand side, we're going to get 6 over 100. Now finding the square root of both sides, x minus 1 over 10 is going to be equal to the square root of the left hand side is going to be x minus 1 over 10, and that will be equal to the square root of 0.06, which is, let me just write square root of 6 over 100 first of all, and that simply means x minus 1 over 10 is the same as plus or minus 6 over 100 is 0.06, and the square root of that is approximately 0.245. So that's plus or minus 0.245, and that simply means x equals, when I take minus 1 over 10 to the right hand side, it becomes plus 1 over 10. So that's 1 over 10 plus or minus 0.245, and that means x equals 1 over 10 is the same as 0.1. That's 0.1 plus or minus 0.245, which means x equals 0.1 plus 0.245, or x equals 0.1 minus 0.245, which means x equals 0.345, or x equals minus 0.145. And that's it, very, very simply. Now let's go straight to how we can use it to derive the quadratic formula. The general quadratic equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now I want to solve this equation by the completing the square method, and that's what's going to lead to the general quadratic equation. That's what's going to lead to, I want to solve this equation by the completing the square method, and that's what's going to lead to the quadratic formula. So the coefficient of x squared is now 1, so I'm going to divide through by what it is. It is a, so I'm dividing through by a. 0 over a is still 0, so I don't need to write that, and this simply means x squared plus b over ax plus c over a equals 0. Now I'm going to move the constant to the right hand side, and that means x squared plus b over ax equals minus c over a. When plus c over a goes to the right hand side, it becomes minus c over a. Now the coefficient of x is b over a. Half of that, which is 1 over 2 times b over a, is b over 2a. So I'm going to add the square of half the coefficient of x to both sides. That means I'm adding the square of b over 2a to both sides, and that's going to give me x squared plus b over ax plus b over plus the square of b over 2a plus the square of b over 2a, let me take this out, equals minus c over a plus the square of b over 2a. That's what I'm adding to both sides. Now this simply means, now the next thing is to write this left hand side as a square, and it's simply x. That's the trick. Just write x and then whatever half the coefficient of x is. If it's minus, put minus. If it's plus, put plus. It's plus a, so that means x plus b over 2a. The square of that is going to be the same as minus c over a plus b squared is b raised to power 2, and 2a squared is 4a raised to power 2. So this left hand side is the same as what is here. So that's what we do to write the left hand side as a square. Now I want to add the two fractions on the right hand side. The denominator, the LCM of the denominators is 4a squared. A in 4a squared is 4a times minus c is minus 4ac plus 4a squared in 4a squared is 1 times b squared. That's b squared, and I can rewrite that as b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Now finding that simply means x plus b over 2a, the square of x plus b over 2a is b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared. Now finding the square roots of both sides. The square root of the left hand side is x plus b over 2a, and that will be equal to the square root of the right hand side, square root of b squared minus 4ac over 4a squared, which simply means the numerator will just be what it is, plus or minus root b squared minus 4ac, and we can find the square root of the denominator. The square root of the denominator is 2a. The square root of 4a squared is 2a, so that simply means x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus root b squared minus 4ac. Now I want to move b over 2a to the right hand side, and that means x equals minus b over 2a. When plus b over 2a gets to the right hand side, it becomes minus b over 2a plus or minus root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now the LCM of the denominators is 2a. I'm combining the two fractions on the right hand side now, and that means minus b plus or minus root b squared minus 4ac. So, and that is it simply. That's the quadratic formula. So that's how we can derive the quadratic formula from the general quadratic equation by completing the square method. Thank you very much. I hope you understand. I hope you understand that, and I'm sure you'd like to subscribe to this channel for more videos. The good thing is that the questions you'll be seeing here that will be solved here are going to be the ones that are very, very relevant to what you are doing at school, because they'll be drawn from the sources where your teachers draw their test and exam questions. So stay safe and God bless. Bye bye.